Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our meeting of the LEEP Dual Language Academy Charter School Board of Trustees. We are waiting for a couple more folks to join us, so bear with us for 5 minutes or so, and then we'll get things started. And Dr. Butaro, thank you for joining us. We're excited to meet you soon, and I'm glad you could come on tonight as a member of the public. Maho, you look like you're somewhere tropical.
I am definitely somewhere. No, it's okay. I am definitely somewhere tropical. I'm in Colombia, and it's very warm. No AC here.
Okay. While we're waiting, the executive committee had a couple small suggestions to some changes to the agenda for tonight, mostly related to just the order of business items. So I will go ahead, if you guys don't mind, and put that up on the screen as a bit of a preview for what we're talking about. Basically moving from old business to new business.
Right, so I guess being 6:05, I will call this meeting to order. And thanks everyone for being here. New school year, start the fiscal year 22 cycle, with a nice swing. I think things have been very good, and we felt very positive about where we've landed ourselves coming into this new year. So it's exciting to be here and meeting with everybody, at least largely in person again, and to really hopefully be kicking off another exciting and productive school year with LEEP as we focus on renewing our charter and expanding into the next couple of grades, and really making sure we get over the hump to instill this place as really a foundation of this community. So again, I thank everyone for taking the time out to be here, and with that, I'll stop listening to myself talk and ask that if the sitting board members have had opportunity to review the minutes of last month's meeting. I'm seeing some nods. So with that, are there any objections to the minutes from last month's meeting? Then with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Second the motion.
So I think Emily moved to, did Emily move or second?
No, Maho spoke first, so Maho, do you want to move?
Okay, so Maho will move to approve the minutes of last month's meeting. Hearing no objection, we have a second from Emily. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it, and we'll approve the minutes. Okay. Oh, sorry, I did this out of order. I wanted to do the oldest things first, sorry. We also needed to discuss chairing this meeting, so I apologize for being presumptuous. I wanted to get some of the meeting underway, but without any objection, unless hearing any objection, I will entertain a motion to chair this particular meeting while we go through the rest of the agenda.
I move that David chairs the meeting.
Thanks, Emily. Emily.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and since we now seem to all be in the mode of moving this forward, will everyone in favor of the motion say aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, ayes have it. And then we can turn to the approval of the agenda for today. I think the board members have had an opportunity to review this, albeit in a different order. Were there any comments before moving to approve the agenda for this month?
Sounds like not. Would there be a motion? You can move.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, I'll second that. And all in favor of approving the agenda for tonight's meeting? Aye.
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 And great. So we have an agenda, we have a run of process, and we have approved minutes from last month. With that, we can look at committee reports. I believe that everyone on the board has received the Finance Committee notes for this month, so I'll turn it over to Bob to run us through the basics of it, but again, continuation from last month. So, good work here, fellas.
Sure. So we did a soft close of the school's books as of June 30th. So we're recognizing an annual surplus of $501,000, which is very strong this year with $6.13 million in revenue against $5.6 million in total expenses. We do have some potential revenue coming in through FEMA. So we're at the end stages of that grant claim as well, which will yield more revenue to the school, which is great news. Just some high-level notes for the from the Finance Committee.
And Bob, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if anybody doesn't have it handy, we did print out a few copies, so I can circulate those while you can.
Sure. Just areas I think where we may have had some cost overrun or some cost savings. Total staffing all in on the year ran about $155,000 over budget. We made some hires, I think, in advance towards like quarter 3 and quarter 4 at the end of the year, knowing we were going to have a surplus and to support some of the school's growth and get a head start on going into school year 2022. And then on the other than personnel side, we ran about $68,000 over budget. Again, a lot of that was advanced spending for some programmatic needs in fiscal year 21, and then just making sure we're well situated again going into next year. Cash on hand at the end of the year was $111,000, and then we received our first set of per pupil funding on July 2nd of 2021. So no cash concerns at the immediate moment. And then just in the packet for the board financials that were circulated, we did provide kind of a detailed cash flow analysis as well, just so you can see the ins and the outs of how the school actually spent its money this year. We are evaluated annually on like 4 financial ratios generated by our balance sheet: current ratio, days cash, total margin, and debt to asset ratio. The last 2 were very much in line. We knew we were going to have a cash crunch this year, and the current ratio right now is just like slightly out of compliance. So we're going to take a look at our year-end financials just to make sure we're not missing any like revenue or expense accruals that can bring us back in line. But overall, considering this was like the second year with kids, and absent of any like startup CSP funding, to be running a $500,000 surplus is a pretty good indicator of financial strength for the time being.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks for providing all of the detail for the year. I mean, I think we talked about the cash situation last night. I mean, it's a shame that, reports have to be given on snapshot day because you're sort of 10 days in or out of making that ratio, give or take either direction almost. And there are calculated things the school has to do to stay open, so hopefully, there's no issue there. But again, I think that for the most part, what we've done here has been very, exceptional stewardship of cash flow, given the situation we've been faced with in the last fiscal year. So we look forward to building a better one next year. We have questions on the financial statements. Do we want to walk through some of the things that we're seeing? I know the Finance Committee had a chance to do that last night. But I think the upshot is, look, we had the benefit of a lot of government programming this year that benefited the school. The school continued to do its job, which meant that it made the money we projected it would do doing that, and then it also was able to benefit from some government program work. We hopefully won't be so fortunate in the future years to see that kind of situation. So it's nice to see that. I think, the question I asked Bob last night most bluntly was, absent those programming, where did we land? And it was June financials for fiscal 21. And like we've said, we want to make sure we deploy that power going into the future of our next classes.
A couple meeting items from now, we'll hear from our auditors, a couple brief remarks, but I just want to acknowledge that Bob and his team work really hard each year around this time because we're wrapping up audits and financials from one year and spending a bunch of money and making a bunch of decisions for the next. So appreciate it, as always. And Jimmy and Mark, thanks for being on. We'll throw it to you in just a couple of items on the agenda, if you don't mind.
Hey, Charles, you're just in time to give the executive committee report.
Charles.
So Charles Somm has joined the meeting. Let the record show. We were just going through committee reports.
See, no one's upset I changed the order now, with Bob going home and Charles coming late, right? Good night, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
So, executive.
Well, when we've talked this month, it's mostly been about what's happening on this board. Charles, do we have too much to report on the executive committee? I think most of it will be unfurled in the remainder of this meeting as we vote for who's on this board and who will be on certain committee actions. But when we've had opportunity to talk over the last month, it's largely been about, how we're going to structure ourselves for the future of the next year, with so many people leaving and fortunately so many good people being recommended by the school's executive staff. So unless you have anything to add, I think maybe I'll close that committee report with that. Okay. Finally, someone who's not me can tell us what happened on the Academic and Accountability Committee.
Well,
Already, Emily.
thank you. And also, we don't have much to report. Unfortunately, we had a summer scheduling break since June, but we are going to be meeting in the next few weeks. Michael, do you want to pull out anything from previous meetings that you want to highlight? Or?
Yeah, no, I just, when we met last, we gave a little bit of a preview of some of our year-end data, and we're going to be chewing that over when the academic committee next meets. Debbie Ness is not here because she's on a much-deserved summer break, but she will be back for our next monthly board meeting. We are joined tonight by Johanna Andujar, who's our vice principal, and she'll share some academic updates as part of my updates in just a few minutes. So I don't think there's any other updates there.
Okay. That probably brings us to Executive Director's report.
Well, before we get there, we're joined tonight. I had the wrong auditing company name in our original agenda, but you guys have changed names, but it's the same smiling faces, and we're glad to have you guys here. So Jimmy and Mark from BDO, you guys had requested a few minutes on our agenda tonight with the board, and so we'd love to hear whatever you have to share.
Hi, good evening, everybody. This is Mark Taub speaking. Thank you for letting us join. We just want to give a brief summary of where we are. We've started the preliminary work on the audit, we basically had no findings as it relates to so far all our testing on the preliminary work. And then at this point, we're just waiting for for you guys to close the books, and we've scheduled the audit to begin in earnest on August 30th. Hopefully by the first week of October or so, we could have a draft out to you. That's really it. We'll be, scheduling it for the October board meeting to be able to approve the audit. I don't think we have anything else. There will be a point in time that Jimmy will reach out to a couple of you we have to do some minor interviewing of some key people, just asking 5 or 6 questions. I think that's really it. Jimmy, anything else we have, or anything else you want to mention?
No, I think that's it. I just want to mention our preliminary testing. It includes the student files and the personnel employee files. So the financial statement audit with the numbers, that's going to start, and the field work will start August 30th.
Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
And if there's any questions or any concerns or any audit procedures, this group or executive committee can reach out to us and inquire. So we're available at any point in time from now through the start of the audit and, of course, through the audit.
Very good. Well, sounds like so far so good. Is that a fair summary? All right.
Got it.
Thank you, guys. All right.
Have a good rest. Have a good rest of the summer, everybody.
Thank you for taking the time. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Before I get into the updates, if you'll pardon me, I want to see if I can quickly add another one of our prospective board members as a panelist. See if David Estrada can join us. You guys can see how the sausage is made on the back end of Zoom. It's not that exciting. Yeah, to his LEEP email, please. Okay.
Chris said on it?
Michael is sending you a panelist link as we speak. Thank you.
All right. So we try to make it a habit of, including pretty thorough monthly updates in the written form. So I hope everybody had a chance to read those. As usual, we organize those against the categories of the SED accountability report, so that we're not losing track of anything that will ultimately be held accountable for. But as is my wont, I will try to just share a few highlights pulled out of there for your most immediate attention. And I'm going to try to manage faces and content and everything on one screen here. So first of all, last month at this time, we had a total waiting list of 57 students, and we were expecting to be fully enrolled in the fall in each grade level. Now it's 58. Some have gone, some have come. That's sort of what happens this time of year, but we're holding pretty solid. We've also continued to do some flyering and marketing around the neighborhood, just in the spirit of getting those numbers up and keeping our name out there. But we do continue to project for academics and building use and financial purposes being 100% enrolled. We're also here at the start of the second week of our first ever summer program at LEEP Academy. You guys have been around for a while. You know, the last 2 summers were construction summers and dust summers and project management summers. And this time of year we have summer school in the morning for 81 of our kids, and another 42 are in summer camp. And the way it works is some kids are doing academic recovery in the morning, some kids are just doing enrichment, and then everyone does enrichment in the afternoons. And everybody, after last week, the last 4 weeks of the program, everybody does a nice field trip on Friday. So this Friday, I believe the kiddos are going to the zoo, and you know, just part of trying to help kids get experiences that are not stuck inside this building or stuck behind a Zoom screen as we all kind of come back to life. I don't want to understate what a lift this has been. Our director, Diana Carrera, and our ops team and our academic leaders have all, they've all pitched in, because we've got counselors and teachers that add up to 17. So we've had quite a full building. And they've really done a nice job and have adapted along the way, even just in this first week. So it's a happy thing. And, you know, I hope you guys have seen some of the images we've shared on social media, but it's been good to have kids here. I also shared in our monthly updates that somewhat surprisingly, we did make a couple of changes in the last 4 weeks to our instructional leadership team. We parted ways with one coach. We had another coach who decided at the last moment there was a different job offer that she preferred. But I do sincerely believe that we have a very happy ending. And so I shared some of their background in the pre-read, but we hired an outside person whose name is Rafael Acosta from the Uncommon Schools Network. Sorry. We have a guest here from Uncommon, who I'll introduce in a few minutes. Rafael had come through that network's training program for rising instructional leaders. He was a terrific 4th grade teacher and did a whole lot of coaching as part of the interview process. So we feel good about him. He's going to be working with our 3rd grade grade level team. And is he working with the specials as well?
Yes.
And also our special subjects team. And then we also made a promotion. This was somebody who had been in our kind of leadership pipeline internally, and we were very happy to have our kindergarten grade level chair, Jarissa Mendes, be promoted. Jarissa was one of our founding teachers. She's really done a great job over these last couple of years inside of the classroom and outside. And so she's going to keep her squad together and just have a different title and take advantage of all that content area knowledge and all those relationships that she's built with the kinder team. So she's going to be the instructional coach with the kinder team. I'm going to kind of keep going through here, but if you're online, I hope you'll interject, unmute yourself if you have a question, and of course we can always loop back too. The other update that I wanted to share is that we somewhat unexpectedly have a real need for teacher hiring in this last month. We had a couple of our prospects change their plans to move to New York, and one of our Teach for America recruitment rounds was delayed. And so anyway, a number of different factors, but we have several roles to be filling. And so I wanted to, having shared the numbers, and there's a chart that was current as of late last week, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing to fill those roles. First is we're going through our existing pipeline. We have, I believe, 4 demo lessons and final interviews scheduled for this next week or so. So that will do a lot, we hope, if these candidates turn out to be as strong as they seem. We are still working with Teach for America to try to land at least one more core member. They have some bilingual candidates in the pipeline who are waiting on some certification changes before they can come interview at LEEP, but there's some potential there. We also have been evaluating the summer teachers that we have, those that might be qualified. We get to see them in action every day. There may be one or two who really are ready to sort of stay for a full-time position. And we're also working with a recruiter. Katie Warnock is a recruiter who works throughout the charter school sector. She's very good at what she does, and so we're hoping that she can also use her pretty extensive network to bring us home. So, you know, in all candor, until we're fully staffed for day one of training, this is going to be my preoccupation and Delinessa's as well. But I wanted you guys to know the steps that we're taking, and just to know that this is going to be a continued focus as we finish up the summer. It's not where I'd like to be numerically, but it's also not terribly unusual that this time of year brings some of these kinds of reshuffling. So, you know, we're going to continue to be very focused on that. We have seven spots to fill.
Remind us when is the first day of training for teachers?
August 11th. Yeah. So, hence the reason for getting those demos booked and trying to keep going. We are taking some mitigating steps. I hate to even talk about it, but we are, you know, recording our trainings, and we're going to be ready in case anybody has to miss any portion of them. But that will that's the goal, is to have everybody there. You may recall. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. There's a teeny delay. You're fine. I just wanted to chime in here. It sounds like you guys are thinking smartly about this and pipelines and all of that. And I'm sure you're aware, and if you aren't, just that like this is happening across lots and lots of schools. I mean, you know, there's a great resignation people are talking about in all sectors, but in education in particular, and in New York in particular. And most schools that I've talked to are facing similar challenges right now, where they're just, yes, there's always movement in the summer, but there's more this summer as people anticipate going back to school full time with full classes in a way that we haven't in a year and a half. So.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful context. Sometimes we get just stuck in our own world. By way of perspective, and you know, I don't want to overstate this point either, but we do have, you know, at least one full-time substitute hired, maybe another one shortly. We do have our interventionists who are all terrific teachers. We don't want to move anybody, but it's not as if we're looking at starting the school without the number of educators that we need. It's just we want to build out that entire model. What I told you guys was that we're going to put all the academic recovery dollars to work, and that's what we intend to do. And a lot of that is in the form of salaries for educators, and so that's why our focus on recruitment.
So one teacher short.
7
right now.
Do we know what grade?
They're mostly in first and second grade. Yeah. Again, that number might be 3 by the end of next week. I'm not sure, but that's currently the number. Yeah. So I'll keep going.
Ms. Woods had a question in the Q&A regarding the teacher hiring, regarding the arts hiring. She typed out, will there be a replacement art and music teacher hired? The arts are critical to young people and a part of why we fell in love with LEEP.
Yes. In fact, our specials team is, I was going to save this till next month, but our specials team is pretty special, no pun intended. We have hired art, music, and dance teachers, each of whom is a professional practitioner in that discipline, each of whom has personal roots in Latin America, and each of whom also has strong teaching experience. Our dance teacher is already part of our faculty here for the summer school program, but we've got some amazing folks that are joining us. They're all lined up. Professional artist, dancer, and musician, respectively. So the arts are going to continue to be a key focus. We also are including science in our specials this year because we want to make sure that we have a dedicated focus on science, and it's part of how we're providing that extra planning time to our homeroom teachers. And so one of our previous, actually founding teachers, who has a master's degree in neuroscience, actually, is going to be becoming a full-time science teacher. We're interviewing right now a couple of candidates for that science role as well. And then finally, of course, PE is one of our specials, and our PE teacher, Mr. Casau, is going to be the grade level or the team chair of that group. So we are fully hired. Well, we're all but half of one position fully hired for the specials team. Yeah, that's definitely actually been a bright spot, and it's been fun to do those interviews. All right, well, I wanted to ask a couple of our guests to share a little bit about what's been going on. I had originally written this as summer planning, but I realized that's really a misnomer. It's not just planning that goes on right now. It's just a whole lot of work, and it's a lot of essential work to lay the groundwork. If you sort of work backwards from any given day at LEEP Academy, teachers are doing what they were trained to do, which means that the people who trained them were working before that, and before they decided what to train on, they were wrestling with the substance and with the data and the curriculum before that. So that's been the work of our instructional leadership team all summer. Our vice principal is here, Joanna, so I'd love for you to just share a few words if you could, and if you could actually speak up for the phone. What have we been up to lately academically?
So, yeah, I want to chime in. I'll go first. I'm Joanna. I'm part of the VP here at LEEP. I'm super excited. I started June 1st, and it's been nonstop since then, and that is what motivates me. So definitely a lot of work since then, and we continue to work really hard. Going back to what Michael said, I'm really thinking about not only looking at the data, but also thinking about what went well this past school year and what are the areas of growth. And we started off by coming up with our initiatives, our goals for the school year, and then from there really breaking down how we're going to reach those goals. And we have two big buckets that we're focusing on this year, which is developing the whole person. And we named this initiative, Developing the Whole Person, because it's not only our kids. In order for us to meet our mission and, achieve that promise that we made to our families, is developing our teachers and developing our leaders. So, Dennis and I are definitely working really hard on how we support the deans and developing deans so that they are equipped to then develop our teachers, and then our kids get what they need. But we also have been working a lot around the approach to coaching teachers, and that is not punitive, and that if we are a responsive classroom school, then that also is modeled in our teams for teachers to learn from the dean. So we launched Leader Institute last week. It was definitely a success. We did a book study on States of Being, where leaders learn the approach to use teachers' strengths to then drive their areas of growth, which aligns nicely to responsive classroom. So definitely Leader Institute was last week, and now we're digging into the how, really going back and analyzing the systems and procedures that were in place in the school, and if what they do was working, we're not going to change that. What do we need to add? So there's a lot of systems and procedures being created, instructional practices, and norming. I can go on and continue talking about all the work that's happening in the instructional side, but I have to say that our two big buckets is development and data-driven instruction, and there's a lot of nitty-gritty within those two buckets. So I'm really looking forward to launching Teacher Institute, and there's just a lot of exciting work happening.
Yeah, I think that really deliberate approach to preparing our instructional leaders for the year ahead is going to really set this year apart for us. because they're in the middle of the craft and the emotions of the school and everything that's going on. And so seeing you guys as a united front has really been fun. And when you guys get intense in there in your training room, so we've tried to all stay away, but now we're coordinating a lot more. Any questions on the academic work going on? Okay, feel free to bring us back there if a question comes up. And then I'd like to also introduce another key leader who's joined us in the last few weeks, and that's our Senior Director of Operations, Matthew Padilla. Matthew, as you guys know, joined us from Success Academy Charter Schools. And what can you tell us about I know so much has been going on operationally, but if you wouldn't mind sharing a few kind of high-level points, that would be great.
Absolutely. So it's, first of all, a pleasure to be here with all of you. As Michael said, I've only been with the org for a few weeks now, and it's been quite a busy few weeks. The summertime tends to be especially busy for operations as we close out one year and prepare to open and just be ready for the next year. And so, a lot of that is what we have been doing. As with any sort of startup, whether it's a school or any other business, the beginning tends to be a bit rough. There are things that you just have to kind of do, right? And you can't really sit back and think about how can we do this in the best way possible, right? Are we thinking about whether or not the systems and processes we're implementing are scalable? Will they work for us in the future? Sometimes you just have to get things done. And so part of what I have been focusing on is really doing a deep dive on our systems, processes, procedures, protocols, the whole nine, to really get a good understanding of what we've been doing in the past and what we need to be doing moving forward into this new school year. It is so critical for any school that the operations are tight. That it's the foundation, it's the backbone of the school. And so that is super important to me, something that we've really been focusing on. And it takes some time, right? We have to really think through what works, right? Every school is different, every space is different. We have to figure out what are the best ways to do things for our community, our space, and our people. And so that's been a big focus of mine. In addition to that, we're really in the middle of all of our summer projects. So, furniture deliveries, curriculum deliveries. I'm really preparing all of those things for the new school year. That also includes all of our facility work, right? So all of the cleaning that needs to get done, any repairs and maintenance, all of these. When the families come back in August, and they see how beautiful the space is, and they see the walls and the shiny floors and all of that. Those are all things that happen over the summer as part of our summer project. So we're in the middle of doing that. As some of you may know, of course, we're also doing a lot of classroom switches. We're growing another grade, right? So there's a lot of movement happening as we essentially, our floor plan that was designed for this coming year, we make that reality. And so those have been the top two things that I've been focusing on over the last 3 to 4 weeks. And in addition to that, something that has been a priority of mine is just really getting to understand the financial side of things as well here at LEEP, and making sure that we're making, fiscally responsible decisions going into this next year, that we're spending money on things that we need to, that we're cutting costs where we can in order to allocate, any excess funds toward other things that we may need. So those have been the top 3 things that I've been focusing my energy on so far.
Thank you so much. It's great to have both of you guys here and all the experience, and I'll just say it's been fun to see the two of you working together and realizing that the way you prefer to work is actually pretty similar, even though you came from different charter school networks. So I know if Deli Ness were here, she would also echo that sentiment. And Yeah, we appreciate it. Anybody have questions on the operations work of the school? Sounds like not. Okay.
How long are you Success Academy?
About 3.5 years.
Has a well-oiled machine, so.
Oh, yeah.
That's step magic.
Leap.
Absolutely.
Very good. Well, I think that concludes my updates. Unless anybody had any questions or comments about something that was in the updates, but not in these highlights.
I don't want to go through this all now, but I assume that we're going to learn more about what the targets that you would like to meet and how you're addressing those in a little bit more depth in the future. Not to put you on the spot, but that is something that we've paid a bit of attention to over the past couple of years, and it's becoming more and more important, not just to the test scores, but also to now people's real lives, right? So we try to keep an eye on that. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe we can share like our initiatives document, actually our academic goals is definitely it's getting finalized, but we're flushing that out. So definitely we can share some of those documents.
Yeah, I think in our August meeting we can save a whole bunch of time to go.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
It's nice to to see a solid foundation coming into place that seems to be working well. So I'm glad to hear it. Please.
Great, thank you. All right, we've got a little bit of new business, and there's also the annual meeting business. But I think a couple of these ought to go relatively quickly. I think we can all feel proud that our federal government has recognized the holiday of Juneteenth in recognition of the end of slavery in a very real sense. We'd like to amend our academic calendar to observe this holiday as we do all federal holidays. And in this case, for this year, it would be June the 20th when it would be observed. We built in enough buffer instructional days that we don't need to take any away. So this is really just changing one date on the calendar. This falls, I think it's the second to the last week of school to have essentially we'd have that Monday off to observe Juneteenth. So I wanted to make that recommendation to the board. This year's Juneteenth actually felt pretty close to our staff party. And, I think I told the staff that I thought the board would very strongly consider this, given what it means for our country. So I wanted to suggest that as a change.
Yeah, I think that makes very good sense.
I think anyone's gonna
I'm not going to stand here and fight you on this. So hearing no objections, I think we should entertain a motion to amend the holiday schedule as per the federal government and the free people of this country. So,
Second that motion.
Thank you, Charles. If there are anyone opposed, speak now or forever hold your fate. And I think with the ayes have it.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, of course.
So I would like to formally apologize for my home state of Texas, because this is where slavery was finally outlawed and emancipation happened. That's why Juneteenth was recognized. So I hereby apologize for Texas on the record.
There's a reason Texas is very happily the first state to recognize Juneteenth. Because at that point they had no choice.
Edward made a great book on Juneteenth and the history of Texas. I highly recommend it to everyone. It's very good. She's obviously a famous story.
Can I make a quick comment? I guess the question is, how many academic days is LEEP now sitting at for?
Yeah, we have one extra day now.
Only one?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, the mayor said no remote options, Michael, so, we have to make them count.
Yes, that's right. We do, in addition to those, our calendar anticipates a couple of potential snow days. So our teachers are on notice, and our families are aware of when those days would be added if necessary, but hopefully they won't be necessary. All right, well, thank you. I had also circulated, and this is a little bit more perhaps nuanced, less obvious, but I circulated a few proposed changes to our employee handbook. And similarly, next month, we'll ask you to consider some changes to the family and student handbook, which the academic team has been working on. For example, looking at our code of conduct and making sure that that's all in line with the approach that we want to take this year. But this is a bit of a grab bag of a few issues that have come up, but these are my recommendations, and I hope everybody had a chance to see them in the pre-reads. I will take a moment, if you guys don't mind, and walk you through the specifics in a relatively quick summary, but we can go into depth wherever we need to. One of the challenges we ran into this year was a statistically unusual amount of sick and personal days being taken near the end of the school year. And I won't cast aspersions on anyone's individual choices about keeping home if they were in fact sick, but I do think we want to have a rational system of incentives. And part of what I think was going on was that our policy of not paying out for unused sick days led people to feel like, well, I better use this, and I better err on the side of not coming in, especially on a nice spring day. So consulting with Bob about what other charter schools do, we would like to recommend a flat fee. It's actually less than we end up paying per day for a substitute teacher agency, if and when we can even find a Spanish-speaking substitute. This would sort of incentivize teachers. Hopefully it's not enough for anybody to come to school sick, but enough to make them, think carefully about it before they take that day. And again, this has a lot of precedent among other charter schools. So that's one thing. And if you're on video, just please, I can't really show all the text and see all your faces. So please unmute and call out if you guys want to comment. I think I will kind of keep going unless anybody wants to ask a question. Yeah, well, and actually let me introduce you. So this is Alejandro Montoya. He works as the Associate Chief Operating Officer at Uncommon Schools and is here as a potential board member. And we're glad to have you here. And yeah, don't wait to start contributing.
Yeah, I the line. No, I was wondering, so I think, I guess my question is, this would apply for all staff, all full-time staff members, non-instructional and instructional?
Both non-instructional and instructional, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. No, so I wonder because I think, obviously, that the end of the academic year doesn't really exist on the outside, right? So ultimately, like, that's great. I think that's a really nice benefit. That's what I wanted to ask. Because typically, I've seen other schools, typically the only teaching or instructional employees will get benefit from the date because
they're the ones who are trying to keep in the seat.
We want.
But that's a good thing to know, and I'm glad you mentioned it. Yeah.
I think so.
But if it helps you fill the 7 vacancies, then we can talk about it.
To keep moving here, because I have a whole slide's worth of this stuff. We'd like to ask, and for more time before folks request personal days. Personal days are typically used for things like medical appointments that can't be scheduled outside of work hours or other situations that come up. We also have a long handbook full of things like voting leave and bereavement leave and other kinds of, and of course medical leave. But personal days are these kind of miscellaneous things. But whenever possible, we want to set a standard that's more than a week's notice, which is what it currently is. So we'd like to double that to 14 days, just based on lessons learned this past year. A little bit of word cleanup. One of our policy sections refers to school leader. We have an embarrassment of riches in the leadership department, but we still need people to know who that means. So we'd like to specify that refers to the executive director or the interim executive director, just so that people are knowing who they should ask. Dress code, opinions vary on this one. I will say I think there is a good justification for easing our policy related to wearing neat, not ripped, and not distressed jeans on selected days, such as training days. And so our current dress code had said they're strictly prohibited. We'd like to prohibit the ripped ones. You can call me a big softie, but I think that little low-cost perk allows us to enforce the fancier dress code the other
It really
days.
feels like someone wronged you with these jeans. I mean, the way I'm reading this, it's like someone did something terrible to you in ripped jeans.
Well,
the unacceptable attire, though not exhaustive, includes ripped jeans. Oh, sorry.
That's right. It won't be underlined like this in the actual handbook. It's just for you guys to know what's changing. The next item is teacher evaluations. In practice, we have found that an annual evaluation cycle that does the full 9 yards is really what is feasible for us, which of course happens on top of our coaching cycles. And in certain cases, we will do a semi-annual evaluation, but it wasn't accurate to say that we have semi-annual evaluations, so we'd like to sort of correct that to match.
No less than language.
Yeah, well, we say we may do semi-annual at the manager's discretion.
Right, but will the evaluations be conducted no less often than once a year or once every other year? I mean, is there a guarantee that we will get them done?
We get them done annually, for sure.
Okay, then maybe we should include that. It sounds like you're saying that it's discretionary to do them more than that, but I think you've left the discretion to not do them at all in that writing.
I don't read it that way. I thought that it was, they are conducted annually, and then there's the option to do it semi-annually and on top of that. But
I think generally conducted is not so restrictive. That's all.
Yeah. So if we,
but I understand that it's intended that way, Emily. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So how about are conducted at least annually? Does that work?
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Thank you.
I'm not going to make you change the ripped jeans thing.
Romantic relationships. The board actually took some time and gave this some real consideration the last time we looked at the handbook. Jill Sheehan from Empire Consultants and one of our committees really went through this in some detail, and I don't want to lose any of that work. Essentially, to summarize, the current policy is if there's a romantic relationship between employees that should develop, and you know, who knows the human heart, these things can happen. There's a disclosure expectation if one member of that relationship holds a supervisory role in the organization. The suggestion from our leadership team, which I agree with, was to slightly amend that and make it specific to if one member of the relationship is in a supervisory role relative to the other. Just felt a little bit less invasive and a little bit more realistic and a little bit more closely aligned to what we're actually worried about, which is not wanting to know anyone's business, but rather making sure there's no conflict of interest or somebody else being unfairly treated because a relationship like this exists. So this seems to be comparable to what other schools' policies are. It feels to me like a small change, but an important one in case we should encounter one of those edge cases. So that was our recommendation on that. That's all of these, and it sounds like so far we're thinking of a motion that would include that one edit that was made to the teacher evaluation.
I'd also like to ask the folks with academic experience or backgrounds about the romantic relationship thing. I'm not opposed to anybody, you know, being involved with whomever they want as long as they're doing that in their own time. That's not the issue. But levels of hierarchy as opposed to direct chains of command may be more identifiable, especially as the school grows. I don't want people to hide behind ambiguity of how specific the rule might be to be a reason not to disclose a relationship. Like, I know that it is kind of getting involved in people's business, and that's why I'm asking for this opinion, because I feel like erring on the side of inclusivity of those reported would help you mitigate any actions that could come up in the future, especially as someone may get reassigned to oversee a class for a period of time or need to cover something temporarily. You know, how does chain of command get defined in all of those various situations? I think the rule that is written is simple and understandable, and, you know, people basically know that if we're both teachers of a grade in different classrooms, then we don't have to report it, and if I were to become the associate principal, then I would have to report it. So I'd like to hear people's opinions on that. And I'm sorry, I can't see everybody either. Thanks. So, because I think if it were up to me, I would keep it the way it is, just for the ease of its use, even though I know that, again, like, I don't want to be involved in people's personal lives. I don't think that's the goal of this rule.
Right.
I'll share just my general thoughts here. I do think that the proposal gets at what we're trying to avoid, right? Which is that, like, a supervisor has a relationship with someone with power dynamic in. However, I actually think the broader language is just, like, a little bit safer, and thinking of just in the context of if something shifts, and we all know, like, in the middle of a school year, people may have to start supervising someone else, or things shift around. I don't know. I would lean toward, if anyone who is in a supervisory, just to cast the wet net wide, even though I agree that the, like, thing we're trying to avoid is more clearly named in the second, but the potential for liability feels safer with the first.
Yeah. Okay, so call me a worrywart for doing it, Michael, but I'm going to say we should keep the old language on that. Do we have any objection to keeping the old language?
I see the logic either way. I think that's a sound choice. You, staff, or Alejandro, or anybody else want to chime in?
I mean, I think you're thinking of regarding the ultimately ever-changing nature of school structure, and then as hierarchy develops over time, I think it is, if the goal is to reduce liability, I think the current language creates more protection for the school, and ultimately, like, the spirit of what it ends up being will end up being carried out, I think, gracefully at the school level, like, but ultimately, legally, the current language does provide us, I think, with more protection.
And, like, you know, at some level, I think we all understand these people spend a lot of time together. You know, they're going to have some kind of relationship with each other. It may not always be positive, but it's going to be there. And, you know, all we're really asking them to do is be responsible about that. I don't think I personally don't think it's too intrusive.
Well, I appreciate the discussion on this, guys. I think if anyone feels moved to make a motion, if there's no more discussion, it would be to adopt this as written, but changing the teacher evaluation language to use the phrase "are conducted at least annually," and to leave the romantic and sexual relationship language as it currently is, instead of making the proposed change.
I will be to accept the changes with those two edits, the current language for relationships and the at least annually for evaluations.
Thanks, Emily. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye, or raise your hand, jump, shout, throw stones, whatever makes you heard. Aye. Thank you. It looks to carry, Michael.
Great. So I think now, and we're actually making good time here.
Saying things like that ruins it.
I know.
Who invited me?
We have some annual meeting business, and I don't know, do you want me to start talking through these? And
I would like that.
Under our bylaws, our July meeting is treated as the annual meeting of the Board of Trustees. And the way that we do the kind of staggered terms of trustee elections, there is typically a part of the board that is up for re-election in each annual meeting, but not the entire board at one time. Although she is not here tonight, I do want to acknowledge Magdalena Berlahand has been one of our founding trustees. I have no reason to believe she wouldn't want to at least begin another 2-year term, but she was last elected at this time 2 years ago when this group was meeting at the Yard because there was no school building yet. And so she would be one trustee who'd be up for re-election to a 2-year term. And then secondly, we have been so fortunate to have Maho as a member of the board. And although her term as a parent representative sort of went into overtime, and we appreciate that, and is now running out, Maho is willing to continue to serve us as a member of our community, which she is. And I think I speak for the whole organization when we say, we have appreciated Maho's help. And so this would be a new term for Maho. The way the bylaws work, again, most trustees are serving a 2-year term. If someone should decide to step down midterm, we can appoint someone new. Things are always flexible. There's a way to work things out, but it is worth taking these kind of annual meetings, I think, to acknowledge service of our trustees and thank them. And in this case, 2 folks who, even with Magdalena not here, I would say, we could and should elect them to another term and thank them for their service. How's that?
Yeah, I mean, as someone in this room that you're all going to let speak, I will say that I'm really glad that Maho is willing to consider another term with us. It has been really, truly invaluable to have the insight of a parent of children in the school who, is not afraid to speak her mind and tell us what is happening and what she thinks about things, and really be open and honest with us about what she values in the school and what she doesn't. And that's something that I don't know how else we would get. So I'm really, really glad that she's entertaining spending some more time with us outside of her role as a parent rep. And I can only say that I hope that the next parent rep, can even hold a candle to that kind of representation.
Sitting right here.
And Magdalena's not here, so I'm not going to make her blush too. But really, we've been so fortunate with the folks that we've had, so I hope that we can keep them. And really, I do appreciate it, Maho, and Magdalena, when she's here, will get it from me next month. Okay.
And our parent rep is here.
Yeah, I'm gathering that.
I'm sorry.
No one said I was well prepared.
If you're not, I don't know what all audio we're picking up, but we will introduce in just a minute Melody Sosa, who's with us here and is on the agenda. But I actually do think, kidding aside, there aren't that many charter schools that have the luxury of having more than one parent who can also bring skills and leadership background independent of their roles as parents. And we're going to have a little while here anyway where we get to have 2. So I think that's really great. So I think the motion to make would be to re-elect this slate of 2 trustees to 2-year terms.
Well, if it's not inappropriate, I would like to move that we re-elect Maho and Magdalena.
I second.
Okay.
All right. Anyone feel like voting against? The ayes have it.
Favor?
Say aye.
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 Unanimous. Okay. Thank you. So the next step would be election of officers. Our bylaws call for a set of officers, chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. We are, as I think everybody, at least in the room and on the panel knows, we're at an unusual inflection point because our founding chair and vice chair recently stepped down after terrific service, and we're welcoming on new members, David Estrada, who's already been voted on, and then 2 members who are here tonight. And then pending state approval, we will have those 3 members as a part of our trustees. So I think, you know, in that sense, this board constituting itself is going to play out over a couple, 3 months, depending on the timing of the state and the paperwork and stuff like that. But in the meantime, there's some leadership roles to be filled. Even if not all of them are filled, we at least want to make sure that we know who's doing what and that we know who's kind of the chair who I can call about any matters that need to go to the chair right away. So I will stop talking because I don't want to mischaracterize anything, but I know you guys have, the executive committee has been talking about an approach here.
Yes, the executive committee, which is now just David and myself. I'm the secretary, David's the treasurer. We kind of decided, as Michael just said, that since we're bringing on so many wonderful new board members, it probably makes sense to have a discussion in the fall about committee assignments and officers, with David serving as the interim acting board chair over the next couple of months, so we kind of we get a more in-depth discussions with the rest of the board about what roles they want to fill, what their skill set is, what committees they might want to serve on, whether they want to take on a leadership position as an officer on the board.
Well, yeah, so I don't think we're at the luxury of being able to table this discussion for, you know, legal and procedural reasons. I also think that because of the inflection point we're in, these committees need to be staffed and need to be working pretty much right away. And I think that, you know, God bless the people in this room, we're going to ask a lot of you, just like was asked of us when we first started here, because that's what it takes to keep a place like this running, especially running fast. You know, I think what Charles and I would like to see happen is us deliberately get to that point with an understanding that, you know, we can revisit long-term appointments in the fall and make sure that we focus on getting the board members cleared through NYSED, the committee assignments actually staffed, and some real reporting into each other so we have a good understanding of where we all are as a group. I think at this point, much more would be premature. And I didn't know another way to carry it through to that point without saying, how do we get from A to B? So, you know, we sort of end up as the ranking folk, and we have to keep the finance committee and the reporting going, and we should keep that going. And for the interim, I think unless someone has another idea or plan, we will continue to hold the meetings this way while we vote on the next committee assignments. I do think that if there hasn't been an appointment to Emily to the executive committee, it might be appropriate to discuss that today in executive session. And then we should determine as a group where we want to see some of these other things go. And I say that not to be exclusive of anybody, except that if Charles and I disagree, I'd rather have a third. You know, and I think you have some history here, Emily. That might make some sense for the time being. But I'm open to suggestion, and this is, in this particular thing, my first kind of rodeo getting this change done.
Yeah, Emily, go ahead.
Just that I'm certainly open to David stepping in as interim in this time, and I think we should just commit to evaluating potentially in October. Just thinking about like the actual start of the year and PD. And granted, we don't have to run PD, but I think it would probably be a realistic time frame to getting everyone on board and looking at that in October.
Audit, we're gonna get the audit in October also, right?
Yep.
I mean, I'm okay with that if you're up for a long day.
It could also be September.
We're gonna get our year-end audit in October, and I'm sure that to save our auditors some money and time, we'll want to review that as quickly as we can, so. That might, our financial audit, that might take October. September or November might just be easier on us. But you know what, let's put it in October. If we move it off the agenda, we'll move it off the agenda. I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Is that okay? We'll just leave it on October for now, I'm sorry.
So,
Is that, okay legally right now? Are we okay, Michael, should we formally vote to have David serve as interim board chair?
While we have that vote in.
And then our, can David serve as treasurer also? Is that okay, or is that?
Do the bylaws prohibit me having both roles?
I don't believe so, no. It would be ideal to have all four officer roles filled, but from an SED oversight perspective, especially because we work so closely with them and they understand at a detailed level how we're building the board, I don't think it's a high-risk move, for example, not to have a vice chair, which essentially the duties are duties designated by the chair. But I think having a secretary, having a treasurer, and having a chair, or at least an acting chair, is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we put that to a vote right now, or?
Yeah, I think, and I usually edit slides while I'm presenting them, but in this case, it might be helpful just so we're all clear on what we're talking about.
Right, and on the next slide, we'll see when these dates actually are, but, so we'll have an interim action for all of these, I suppose.
Did I spell your name correctly?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Almost everybody gets that wrong.
Yeah, well, I can relate with my last name.
And then, if there's members of the board who, not right now, we don't have to decide, I don't think, but even before our next meeting in August, if there's members of the board who want to step up and, are interested in serving as officer, that would be great, as vice chair, or, and also just, let's all going forward think seriously about our committee assignments. I think it'd be good to have every board member on a committee, kind of strengthen these committees, make sure that they, are meeting regularly, reporting to the board.
I think we can take acting out if we vote on it, Michael.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, obviously we have a lot of work to do over the next couple months, just finding everyone's spot on the board, and let's all just come together.
Yeah. And is David Estrada on the phone? I apologize. I've gone through some of his work, but I haven't had much time to talk with him about this. And so I'd like, if you can hear me, let's try and set something up for later in the week or early next week if we can. Okay, David?
Yes, I'm here. I'm monitoring everything. I'm sorry I'm not on site, but I'm happy to connect.
Sounds good. I'll shoot you a note.
Very good.
Okay. So should we move to vote for these interim positions pending the October meeting?
I think so.
All right.
So moved. We have a second?
A second.
All right, well, all those in favor of the interim positions pending October's meeting, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. So finally, to committee members, do you want to do a motion just to keep committees as they are?
So for the moment, I think we should move to keep the committees at least as they are. I think if we have time to have a private board session, we can discuss that tonight, but it might be much. And certainly for the next meeting, we'll have more to say about it with our new folks. So it might not be worth stressing too many people about. So I will move to keep the Finance Committee and Executive Committees as they are. Emily, are you the only person on the Academic Committee right now?
Yes.
Magdalena.
Okay, so Emily and Magdalena on the Academic Committees? Okay. And then Charles and myself on Finance and Executive, and we'll just keep it that way for now. I will move to keep the appointments as they stand until the October meeting. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Charles. Will all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
I heard 3 or 4 there. Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. It's a little unusual of a situation, but momentum is on our side in terms of board development. The one last bit of annual meeting business is circulated around a calendar of monthly meetings. Just by way of saving us time, I continued the pattern of the third Tuesday of each month, with the exception of December, when it's the second Tuesday to avoid the school's holiday break. So this would be what seems to have worked historically, but of course the board's free to talk about changing the time or the time of the month or the day of the week or anything like that.
No, once again, I think we're required to make sure we adopt a calendar. So hearing no particular objection to these dates, I'll move that we adopt them. I also would like, everyone to realize we understand the rules of meeting to continue to be a moving target. So we'll continue to keep everybody informed on how that goes and what that means for the schedule if and when it has to change, for other reasons outside of our control. So if I could get a second on the schedule, at least insofar as we must really notice August pretty soon.
Second.
Thanks, guys. Would all in favor please say aye? Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. The motion carries.
Great. Okay, next up, we have a couple of potential new members who are here. And Maho, I don't know if you're free to speak, but you've got the right to introduce our friend Melody if you'd like.
I am happy to try. I am not sure with how stable my connection is, so let me know if it gets a little too choppy. It seems to come and go. I've been able to hear everything, but I know that speaking tends to be different. And I just wanted to introduce Melody Sosa. She is a parent of 2 students currently at LEEP, and she's just an all-around wonderful person. She also has some experience with this work. She has served on the school leadership team at her oldest school, which was a DOE school here in New York City. Well, they're in New York City. I am not there at the moment. And I had an opportunity to meet with her in mid-June to talk to her, to have a chat together about what being on the board is like, what it means, what it entails, the responsibilities, and all that. And she was very enthusiastic about joining the board and very happy to help the school grow. And I think she would be a great addition to the board. So I would love to nominate her.
Do you want to say anything, Melody? Thank you, Maho. That was great.
Yes, I'm very excited to be here, and hope I can help, and I know I can help, and make the school better and help it grow, for sure.
Great.
What grades do your children in? What were their names?
I have a 2nd grader and a 1st grader, so And I was also an SLT at a public school, and they told me, no, don't take your kids out of here. I had my 3 kids in there, and I'm like, no, I have to. My 2nd grader needs services, and he wasn't getting them at public school. I'm like, he needs to, and for some reason, my heart told me, bring him to LEEP. And I brought him here, and he's doing much better. He couldn't even spell his name, and he was in kindergarten. I'm like, he's in kindergarten. I'm like, give him time, give him time. I can't give him time. I know time is gonna go by, and I'm just happy. He's very clever now.
That's great.
Yeah, it's working out, and I'm just happy with the special ed classes we have here, and the teachers, they really, really great.
Yeah. And
they would tell me it's a big mistake because it's a dual language. I'm like, I speak Spanish. It's not going to be a mistake. if it's a mistake now, I feel like it was a mistake when I had him there and he wasn't getting the services. I'm like, what else can go wrong? 50-50. Let me just go.
Right, you're not taking care of him, so I should leave him here?
Yeah. So I was still kind of SLP because I had a fifth grader there, and my kids were already here, so it was kind of weird, like, I'm sorry for school, so my kids are not there anymore.
Okay, you guys make choices.
Yeah, I
know
have to.
a lot of parents have kids are different, right? And
Yeah.
They have to find different places and serve their kids differently, so.
Yeah, I'm just happy, I'm very happy.
You live here in Sunset Park?
Yeah.
Okay.
45th Street.
Oh, wow.
I'm very close, I can walk here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm trying, I got a few students who came. Like I wonder, and during the meetings, they were like, oh, some parents, a lot of students went to LEEP, I wonder how much.
So we're putting her on the finance committee as the rainmaker.
How did you hear about these? How did you hear about these? Did you see it walking by? Or?
In the park, but you guys didn't go to the park this year, I feel. There was a lot of movement. There was
You couldn't go to the park because of COVID?
Yeah, in the park, and, there was also the other school, Broken Rides, and so there, I'm like, no, because I want them to learn Spanish, it's keeping them sane. And I'm hearing that their, special ed is not that good, and Broken Rides, I'm like, oh, thank God, listen to my heart, and I do a peaceful. So, yeah.
We're
hearts are always.
Yes, I'm like, always.
I'm glad that what they were doing here spoke to you. I can't speak to what they're doing at Brooklyn West.
Yes.
Very good. Well, we're glad you're here. You guys may recall Melody chimed in each of our last couple of meetings with some ideas, and I hope you just continue that.
Yeah.
And between you and Maho, I hope that we can really have, not just at board meetings, but in between and in the work that our leadership team is doing. We want to hear those ideas. So thank you. Alejandro, you guys have already met him, and we've benefited from his expertise. But can you say a few words about yourself and your journey, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Bear in mind, we've all read everything there is to know.
That's right. Well, yeah, as Michael said, I'm currently the Associate Chief Operating Officer at Uncommon Charter Schools, where I currently supervise 5 individual schools in the Brooklyn area. But like Sridhar here, I also worked at Success Academy for about 3+ years as well. And in between that, I had the privilege, most recently I was the Director of Operations and Human Resources at Harlem Link Charter School for also about 3.5 years. And I'm also a born and bred New Yorker, prep student as well. And I also serve on the Board of Trustees at the Little Red Schoolhouse and Elizabeth Irvin High School, where I went to high school as well. So I think that I can certainly provide my insight and experience to the board, and I'm very eager to bring that to the board. I think LEEP has an amazing mission and has done so much already, and you're in this beautiful place in not only just like geographically, but also in a world where schools are fighting for students to come to their schools, to have a flourishing wait list that will continue to, I think, add on. That really speaks to, I think, the power of what LEEP has to offer, and does really bode well for both renewal conversations but also just overall like building a very long-lasting community. So I'm very excited to possibly be elected to the board.
It's nice to have you both here. You know, Alejandro, obviously we've read a little bit more about you, I think you've had a bit more of a relationship with Michael coming up to this point, somewhat professionally. So I'm glad to have your expertise in the room, and you know, we're excited to have someone with that kind of background helping us out, because that's a lot of what you know, has been leading over the last year or so, is a lot of that academic and charter background that people really brought to the table. So as I already fawned over having vocal and appreciative parent reps, and I do appreciate that, I'm glad to have someone with your background willing to join us. With that, if I'm not talking too much again, I think maybe I'll move to just nominate both members to the board. If we would get a second.
Second.
All right, easier in the room, that's all. He's faster, Maho, I'm sorry. But would all in favor of approving the nomination of Melody Sosa and Alejandro Montoya to the Board of Trustees say aye. It looks like we have everyone. Motion carries. Guys, welcome and thank you. David Estrada, I think, is still muted, but I'm sure he shares our sentiment, if it's not too bold.
I'm muted, but my understanding is I'm as yet a non-voting member, just pending on clearance that you sent to me to fill out.
Oh no, that's right. I'm just putting words in your mouth because I'm here and you can't defend yourself.
I appreciate. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Roberto was hoping to make a quick comment.
I just wanted to make sure, Maho, that you heard from me when I approached you to represent the school as our founding and our first parent representative. And like Michael said earlier, you went overtime on your time. And so in that time, however, we went through a pandemic together, and you communicated to our parents all through that. You also did videos for us that were really quite well done, I might add. I also learned that you had some tremendous abilities in the financial area, most recently going through our financial reports. Big contribution, and I know that you're going to be a great mentor for Melody as she comes in and takes over that role. And I remember, Melody, in the park, you accosting me and saying, are you going to have a good Fed program? and of course I said, sure. So Melody, thank you for also accepting this responsibility, as well as Alejandro, muchas gracias por colocarse con nosotros. But Maho, thank you for taking that extra step with us. And I know that there's much more, particularly you being an evangelist out in Bay Ridge and getting some more families out there as well.
And so with that, we'll ask you to all get fingerprinted and send, your birth certificates to Michael and stuff. And
yeah, I will follow.
Someone will be by your house with a scope and go from there.
I guess I'm typing, but you guys can see me typing. I was going to say thanks for the masks also.
Yeah, that's a she made the mask. That was amazing.
Maho's handmade masks. It's every single time there's a global pandemic, she makes masks. We're one for one.
Again, hey, those are the kinds of things we're not saying.
I believe the next item on our agenda is public comments, and we do have a few members of the public, or at least we did earlier. If I can click the right button. Ms. Woods is here. Whoops, let me try that again. Amma, would you care to make a comment tonight?
No, thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks again for joining us,
David, would you like to say anything tonight? You're not technically a member of the public, but since you're here, David Estrada.
Yes, sorry, I've been muting just because of background noise. No, just thanks, and I'm learning a lot.
Great. And
new folks catch up. Thank you.
Thanks. And finally, we have a member of the public who I think Roberto made friends with recently, and we're hoping to meet So Dr. Butaro is, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, I understand to be an expert in dual language instruction, and we're so glad that you joined us tonight. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. It's been a pleasure and an honor, to listen to your entire agenda and moving from the previous language to the new language in your handbooks. Yes, I've got quite a bit of experience in dual language programs. I actually published a monograph together with my former doctoral dissertation mentor, Dr. Angela Carrasquillo. And during my sabbatical at Adelphi University, I also published a K-6 Spanish curriculum, which has been used by quite a few schools. I had a really interesting conversation with Roberto regarding dual language programs, and he seemed pretty impressed because I follow the philosophy of the 90-10 model. I know that in many New York City public schools, the push has been for the 50-50 model. And if you take a look at the research done by Virginia Collier and Thomas Wayne, basically the 90-10 model is much more productive and much more effective. I also believe in authenticity of material. I don't believe in translation of English texts, and unfortunately that has been an issue in a lot of the schools that I have been doing quite a bit of consulting with. So the goal is to get these kids to become biliterate, bilingual, and bicultural, or multilingual, multiliterate, and multicultural. So I don't want to bore anybody, but if they have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Well, thank you. And I know Roberto's extended an invitation. We might even have a date to have you come visit the school. I look forward to meeting you. And, we really appreciate your joining our meeting tonight. So.
Oh, it's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much.
Mucho gusto.
Un placer.
And then finally, I see Lauren is on the line. Lauren, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everybody. I missed part of the meeting, but no, I don't have anything to add except that Garrett just came out of bed. So, so I hope everyone's having a really nice summer. You may want to mute me now.
We hope you are too, Lauren. Best to your family. We'll see you soon. All right. So I believe that concludes the public comment. I heard you mention an executive session, but I don't know if the board prefers to go into executive session.
I can't see Emily's face right now. Charles, I'm not getting a lot of enthusiasm from, so I think maybe we'll hold that off for another time. Is there any new business to come before the board that we've not already addressed? Anyone? No, hearing none. Is there any old business we may have overlooked to discuss? All right, hearing none, I think we should entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, I would like to move to adjourn the meeting. Charles has ended in advance, and voting on adjourning the meeting, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, seeing Maho wave, the motion carries.
Yes.
Thank you, guys, and I will talk with you soon.